Hello. We'll talk today about Helmut Jahn, an important German-American architect who died in 2021 in a bicycle accident. Strangely and sadly, this is what happened. He was riding his bike in Chicago in 2021 and he had an accident and he died. So just a second, let's read a little bit about him. Helmut Jahn, born on January 4th, and today is January 4th, but 2023. So he was born 83 years ago and died on May 8th, 2021, was a German-American architect known for projects such as the Sony Center on the Potsdamer Platz in Berlin, Germany, the Messeturm in Frankfurt, Germany, the Thompson Center in Chicago, One Liberty Place in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, formerly the tallest building in Philadelphia, and Suvarnabhumi Airport in Bangkok, Thailand, among other projects. His recent projects, when this text was written, included 50 West Street, a residential tower in New York City in 2016, and the ThyssenKrupp test tower in Rottweil, Germany in 2017. Sorry about the pronunciation in German. I do not know German, and I apologize. Here.
Viața e prea scurtă să înveți germană.
Something happened. So here was the man saying that I strive for an architecture from which nothing can be taken away. Well, I wonder what time would think about this, because time does take away from our buildings. Doesn't matter they are Egyptian pyramids or a shack. So I'm sure time will have a different opinion about this than Mr. Helmut Jahn. Sooner or later, time will take care of, ignoring our, ambitious views about the longevity of our works. He was not the most modest man in the world, and this picture does show it. I mean, he was an elegant man. He made it to the covers of, the fashion magazines and so on. And then, but this man who looks like a successful playboy, he was actually married for many years and probably an excellent and faithful husband. Here he is as a young man coming from Germany to the United States. It's not very clear to me. I mean, it is in a way. You can find information about his education. He didn't follow the common path, but he was inspired to apply for a job at a large firm of Murphy and Associates, and there he became very quickly a partner. And then, after Mr. Murphy died, Helmut Jahn became the leader of a big successful architectural firm. This is what he said: the architecture profession has lost a lot of its integrity, especially in the United States. The general architect here has no scruples, no ambitions. Interesting statement, because sometimes or often, ambitions are in conflict with scruples. If you are too ambitious, you have no scruples. But strangely, he decries the absence of both ambitions and scruples. It's a statement which deserves some scrutiny. Anyway, here he is in his elder age or older age. Still biking though. Here he is staring at us from this GQ magazine. Of course, he was able to sell himself in provocative postures. And he was very successful in those years, which unfortunately were affected by postmodernism. Drawings by Helmut Jahn. Again, he was born in Germany, raised in Germany, but then he went to the United States, and his activities related to the United States, although he built afterwards also in Germany some significant buildings. For example, this drawing is a composite drawing of what he did in Potsdamer Platz in Berlin. And too bad that today we don't have with us the engineer who worked with Helmut Jahn exactly on this project, Bruce Benzinger, who actually complained that here it wasn't exactly what would have been the best solution, but he worked on it with Helmut Jahn, and we are going to see pictures a bit, rather difficult, structural situation because of the ellipse and the asymmetry. We are going to see this project. This is how he drew, and somehow he managed to keep the spirit of his drawings also in the final work, in the built work, which is not easy at all, especially since his drawings do have a certain artistic quality, and they are not simple, technical, representations of the building to be built. You can see his drawings assume a certain so-called visionary stance, and they have a level of abstraction. They are concerned with their graphic qualities, but the spirit of the drawing is kept in the building, in the built work. And he did build these works, these drawings. They are not just, drawings more or less skillful of a frustrated architect who in an attic or who knows where draws visions that will never come into being. This man built and built and built and built and ran an office, a large office in the United States. This tower was built, and we are going to see it. But he also drew, and as you can see, he drew manually. This was done was not done with a computer. It was not done with the softwares that we have today. This was, all the background that you see here was done manually. He worked hard on these drawings. Helmut Jahn drawings, September 14th, October 31st, 1999. Of course, he had exhibitions, books were published. It was very successful. Less successful, falling from the bicycle. What can we do? Wolf Prix also fell from the bicycle and ruined one of his legs. And funnily, the fate punished him because he, believed in a non-gravitational architecture. Well, gravity does exist, the force of gravity, and it acts upon even architects who move towards removing the third leg, the fourth leg, and then the third leg of architecture, and then moving towards removing, I guess, even the second leg, which would be difficult even for a human being. Anyway, James R. Thompson Center in Chicago. This is maybe the most famous building by Helmut Jahn. And I visited it. I was inside this building and I had vertigo. I had an anxiety attack, very strong anxiety attack, because it has this huge atrium and we are going to see it. And I took the elevator and I didn't feel comfortable. There was nothing wrong with the elevator. I think it was something wrong with me, that I was overwhelmed by the size of the building and the tumultuousness, although this is something that under normal conditions would not affect me. At that stage in my life, when I visited, I had a terrible anxiety inside the building. Here we see a sculpture by Jean Dubuffet, an interesting French architect. And this is the interior of the building. As you can see, the spirit of the drawings is almost ad literam reproduced in the actuality of the building. The building had a difficult life for the past years. It was almost in danger of being demolished. But I think Google acquired it and will move in it, or already did. I don't know. But it's a building where the public function of the building, res publica, is asserted with courage, with a lot of self-belief, with a lot of emphasis. And I think those architects who think that architecture is actually about the publicness of its spaces, even within a villa, when you consider that maybe what was said maybe by Palladio, or maybe even by Alberti, or maybe some other people, that a room is like a house and the house is like a community of, or a cluster of buildings, and the cluster of buildings or a street is similar to the whole city, and vice versa, that the small reproduces the big and the big reproduces the small. But the publicness of a living room, let's say, it's still a publicness for a small number of people, as opposed to here, where we have a potentially at least a large number of people. It's a very emphatic space. Of course, it's not sustainable. But at that time when the building was built, sustainability was not an issue. It is a spectacular building, and like the buildings of John Portman, it asserts the void, the atrium, asserts a belief in publicness, and even in a certain transcendence that this oversized architectural publicness manifests itself. But this bigness is actually constituted of small elements that come together to create it. It would be unfair to say that this is not an impressive architecture. It is. Maybe it's not one of the most sophisticated and intricately connecting the small with the big, like in some masterpieces of architecture, but it's still a building that cannot leave one indifferent. And strangely, as I said, it was destined for demolition. But it was saved because, at least for now, because of the community of the architects protesting, and but all these demolitions, are they actions respecting or promoting or serving sustainability? Of course not. I mean, this was a building built with a lot of effort, with a lot of money, with a lot of work, and to demolish it is certainly unsustainable. Now the exterior is almost a typical North American building, mammoth-like, huge. But here you discern the fragments that compose it, which makes it a little bit different. And the inside has the virtue of impressing you, if not making you anxious, as it happened in my case. There are reflections. It's a mundane architecture. It's a commercial architecture. Let's not compare it with the Brion Cemetery by Carlos Carpa. This is a building in the center of a major city in the United States, in Chicago. And, its raison d'etre was connected and disconnected with what we call, the commercial aspects of life. Someone had to pay for this giant building that Helmut Jahn built. He also built work for airports. We're going to see. He built a lot, and he built, buildings that are not, anti-architectures or, just buildings. He was an architect. You might like his work or you might not like his work, but he was an architect. I wonder what Piranesi would have thought of this building. You can see its size by contemplating the large number of people, in the base, at the bottom of this giant atrium. Now, the Sony Center in Berlin, we already saw a drawing by him. Here again, we see the publicness of architecture, but here the publicness of architecture is taking place, in fact, is manifesting itself outside of the building per se. It's a covered exterior wall. In the Potsdamer Platz, the architect, the engineer, the structural engineer who worked on this project from Obearu, meaning Bruce Danziger, told me that he was not happy, and I can feel, without having the technical knowledge, that this part of the, of the structure was a little bit awkward, not maybe, I mean, that's what he said, not solved properly. They couldn't find that, but even so, in its idiosyncrasy, it's maybe interesting to contemplate. Here, all kinds of architects, important architects built buildings. It's not very clear to me, besides what we looked at, that courtyard. I guess all the buildings around the courtyard were built by HELMUT JAHN, although there are other architects who built around here, like Renzo Piano and Richard Rogers and Arata Isozaki. But this was done by HELMUT JAHN in the center of Berlin, in Potsdamer Platz. An ambitious project. And ambitious, again, because of the difficulties and the complexities and the size of this central outdoor space that they wanted to cover in this way. And to an extent, I think it is successful. You can see it here in the background on the left side, the upper left corner. I mean, if we compare the viscerality of this courtyard with the more serene and flat and sleek elevation of the building towards outside, this is an invitation towards a vortex of energies that I like to describe with a word like viscerality, a visceral architecture. You enter into the stomach of architecture, where there are the organs, the intestines, where in a way the truth of the building is revealed, as opposed to what you see outside, which is so sleek and rather indifferent. It doesn't communicate, but the interior, it communicates. I'm thinking now of that famous painting of Rembrandt with the corpse of a cow that is opened up. In a way, here we see opening up the building with all the problems and all the difficulties, but an attempt towards communicating what is hidden. An interesting work, although again the level of the mundane and the level of what is commercial is still high. But I guess it functions as some kind of a catalyst for social interaction, for public life, which is very, very important in architecture. And it's important, as I try to communicate, even at the level of an apartment or a house, where a living room is the space of the interaction of the members of the family that occupies that apartment. But here we are dealing with a building in a major city. In a certain way, the symbolic character or the symbolic attribute of this building is what elevates it above some of the other buildings built by other important architects in Berlin, because it's about this coming together and beyond the shadows, the ghosts of the war, and so it is some kind of a rebirth taking place here in a very important place in Berlin, in Potsdamer Platz. It is an ambitious architecture. And today, I read on Arch Daily that, important architecture firms are contemplating 2024 and beyond 2024 architecture to be less spectacular and more restrained. And I thought about it, if we have problems, we have limited resources, we have the climate change, we had the pandemic, we had 2 wars at this very moment. But I think the aspiration towards the exceptional shouldn't, this aspiration should not disappear. And I even thought of a maybe paradoxical way of putting it. A resourceful art or a resourceful architecture in a resourceless world. Because I think even if we have less resources, we could still build significantly. And, it's enough to think of the Middle Ages, for example, where very poor little towns built unbelievable cathedrals. I mean, Chartres rebuilt Chartres Cathedral in 25 years, and it is one of the most magnificent buildings ever built. What resources did they have? They were immensely poor compared to us. So I think sustainability is an issue and we should address it, but I don't think sustainability should affect our desire to transcend our human condition and try to do still significant works. I mean, we cannot justify mediocre architectural gestures by, that we have problems. We do have problems, but maybe exactly this problem should make us become even more intensely desiring of significant artistic and architectonic gestures, not flamboyant in a shallow way, not superficial, not mundane, not commercial, but maybe spiritual. Maybe poverty or increased problems will increase also paradoxically, or maybe not paradoxically, would increase more concerns with what we neglected for so long, and that is the spiritual. Anyway, this is the plan of the buildings. I guess he built all these buildings. This is the Sony Center. My God. I mean, the Sony indeed needed many buildings, but still the core of the building is the ellipse, the exterior space, the atrium that is covered, as we saw. And the ellipse is a geometrical figure which, because it has 2 centers, is based on 2 circles with 2 centers. It brings into discussion, so to speak, a certain irrationality. And it's a Baroque element in a way. That's why the Baroque architects used the ellipse very often. He could have used a circle here, no? No, why did he choose the ellipse? Here are the sketches of Helmut Jahn. there is tension here and there is conflict, and I think the acknowledgement of this conflict and of this tension is the right thing in a city like Berlin. And maybe not just in a city like Berlin, but specifically in a city like Berlin. Now, this building in Frankfurt in Germany, it's a trade fair tower, a 63-story, 257-meter skyscrapers in the West End Süd district of Frankfurt, Germany. It is the second tallest building in Frankfurt, the second tallest building in Germany, and the second tallest building in the European Union. Well, at that time, I don't know if this is continues to be so. It was the tallest building in Europe from its completion in 1991 until 1997, when it was surpassed by the Commerzbank Tower, which is also located in Frankfurt. And this is the building, tall indeed, 67 towers. Its architecture, in my opinion, is a little bit too predictably, affected by what we call postmodernism. But it is like his drawings showed. It's a phallic tower. Well, almost all towers are phallic, but this one is somehow
It's
even
special.
more explicitly so. Anyway, another tower on this world, in this world, by HELMUT JAHN, Frankfurt. And the pyramid, of course, evokes the same quest for centrality and power and authority and assurance or self-assurance. Liberty Place, Philadelphia, USA, HELMUT JAHN. Liberty Place is a skyscraper complex in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, United States. The complex is composed of a 61-story skyscraper called One Liberty Place, a 58-story, shorter one, skyscraper called the Two Liberty Place, a 2-story shopping mall called the Shops at Liberty Place. I mean, could we imagine liberty without shopping? I shop, therefore I am, no? As Barbara Kruger said, sarcastically. Anyway, here they are, the towers. What can we say? They are in Philadelphia. They are well crafted. They are graphic. They have a certain relationship with the previous towers built in the United States, not necessarily in Philadelphia. Maybe some echoes from the Chrysler building. Yeah, HELMUT JAHN, Philadelphia. When you think about all these buildings, what are they celebrating actually? Well, they are celebrating financial speculations. They are celebrating, money manipulations by high capitalism. I mean, this is the citadel of capitalism, that it is in Philadelphia or Dallas or Chicago or New York. We are talking about the immensely so-called successful capitalism, which we have troubles to envision something to replace it with. So at the center of everything is money. Gone is the cathedral. I mentioned the Chartres Cathedral. Where is it? The Chartres Cathedral here would be an insignificant building in terms of size if placed in the shadow of these giant buildings. Now, this airport in Thailand, whose name I hesitate to pronounce or to read, an airport is an airport. He's good, either horizontally or vertically. Here is, in a way, a horizontal horizon scraper. If I am to speak in these terms, a horizon scraper or a horizontal skyscraper is not skyscraper, it's a horizontal skyscraper, it's a horizon scraper. And it's done again. We see the insinuation of the ellipse. So this is actually a quality of Helmut Jahn, that this kind of architecture would have been much more comfortable in the field of uh, uh, roundness that the circle brings into play. But the fact that he flirts with the ellipse, with the rationality of the ellipse, shows that he had a certain complexity, and this is shown in some other ways as well. He was a good architect. Again, sometimes the postmodernism affected his architectural expressions, but even here we see, an attempt to divulge what is hidden by a structure which could have been, separating excessively the viewer or the user from what happens inside. But we see that even here, he seems to want to open up the structure and dissect it. A giant effort, and I think a successful effort. Helmut Jahn in Thailand. Now again, this building or all his buildings, they cannot function without an incredible machinery that conditions the air, pumping in air, in the summer, cold air, in the winter, warm air. These are not modest, shy, timid, restrained, sustainable architectural gestures. No, I mean, look at the structure here. It's vigorous, it's virile, it's ambitious. The new Bangkok International Airport. Not bad. But you see, the gods of fate who decided to make this architect fall from his bike at 80 were not very impressed by this airport or by the towers that he built in Philadelphia or in Frankfurt or in New York City. Here we see, some show put up for the tourists by the artists of dancers of Thailand. Yes, there is a lot of willfulness here. Yes, this is a willful architecture, but it's hard to make a doubtful airport. It would be a contradiction in terms. The system is maybe a little bit too obvious, but because of these curves that are based on the ellipse, the system is problematized, and I think this is a quality. Now, this tower, which was probably, it was, almost surely was finalized when I made this presentation. It wasn't yet. 50 West Street, New York City. Is this, glass tower? Lots of glass, lots of energy, lots of air conditioning. What can we do? It's the city of man, the city of human being that still had megalomaniacal dreams and still has them. Well, actually, I do have recent pictures of it. Again, it is a tower that does what it's supposed to do. It's not a Hamletian tower. It's not a tower that shakes its head. It's a tower that says, "Here I am, and I intend to be forever and ever and ever, unaffected by the passage of time, unaffected by the climate change, unaffected by COVID, unaffected by the wars in Ukraine and in Gaza. Helmut Jahn, who fell from the bicycle, and that's how he died. On the left, we see the new World Trade Center, the one built by David Childs from SOM, Skidmore, Owings and Merrill, the famous large architectural firm, also from Chicago. But we know the building, the competition was won by Daniel Lipskind, but in the end, the building was built by the main designer, the designer David Childs from SOM. And here in all its splendor and shining in the sunset light, the tower by Helmut Jahn. Thank you. And let's wish him happy birthday. Today is his birthday, the 4th of January.